Hi, I'm Howard Drossin, and you're listening to the SEGA Lounge.
Welcome to the SEGA Lounge, a podcast dedicated to our love for all things Sega, be it the games, the music, or the community. I'm KC. In each episode, I'll be talking to different guests and sharing their projects and their passion for Sega. Hello everyone and welcome to the SEGA Lounge. I hope you had a great week and are ready to learn more about Howard Drossin and his work at Sega. Before we get to that, I just have to mention the news we heard this week. Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX was announced by Merge Games during IGN's Summer of Gaming online event. This is an official remake of the original game with updated graphics, new modes, new levels, alternative boss fights, and even a retro mode. It's important to mention that some of the people involved in this were also part of the Streets of Rage 4 team. This is of course great news for old school Sega fans like myself, but not just for people that like Alex Kidd. It means Sega is moving forward on this path of letting third-party developers work on their dormant IPs. After Wonder Boy, Panzer Dragoon, and Streets of Rage, we have Alex Kidd making a comeback, and I, for one, couldn't be happier. Let's hope this is another successful title, and we can see more classic franchises coming back. Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX is slated for a 2021 release. And now, for the interview. In case you missed last week's episode featuring the first part of my interview with Howard Drossin, legendary Sega composer, I urge you to stop listening to this, go listen to that episode, and come back for this second part. While last week we covered Comic Zone, Sonic Spinball, and how Howard got involved with Sega in the 90s, this final part of the interview focuses on Virtual Sonic, Howard's current projects, and even his advice to aspiring video game composers. Oh, and there's the SEGA Lounge Challenge somewhere in the middle as well. Enjoy! Virtual Sonic.
Yes.
Which is another thing that is kind of different from everything else. So you worked on music for games, or you were working on music for games at the time, and then you have Virtual Sonic, which was something for a sort of an amusement park, right? Sega
Right.
Virtual Land.
Right.
How different was this from all the other projects that you were working on at STI? And what were the challenges, and how did you approach this, seeing as it was such a different project?
Well, it was vastly different in that it was full bandwidth. You know, I didn't do any of it on the Genesis. I was just told that I could make an album, and I could do whatever I wanted. So I was told that it was for some. And I'd been there. It was at the Luxor Hotel. The Luxor Hotel in the center of it, like in the middle of the casino, there was like, I don't know. It looked like a volcano to me, but maybe it was like a pyramid or a mountain. And inside of that was this kind of Sega arcade or something. Sega had a footprint there. So I was told they wanted to release like an album that maybe would play in there, and it would just be like music from the worlds of Sonic or something like that. And I was told, well, you know, are there specific things you want me to do? I wasn't given any direction whatsoever, basically, except, you know, music from the worlds of Sonic, do whatever the hell you want. So it was, I would say, totally self-indulgent. I was just doing whatever, you know. The album, certainly looking back on it, didn't have a focus to it. It was like a million different styles, you know, like from one track to the next. You know, I took a couple of the themes that I did and you know, reimagine them into longer tracks that develop. I think one of them was from Well, actually, no, not one of them. Both of them were from Spinball, and then one of them was a Sonic and Knuckles theme,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of turned them into, full bandwidth of the day. What we had with orchestra and my guitar, and that was it. And the rest was just shit that I made up. It was like, oh, I'll put this on.
And this was all you, right?
Yes, that's just all me, and mixed by me, unfortunately. But that's, I've gotten better at mixing, and the sounds have gotten better, but I wasn't that good of a mixer back then. So I would just kind of, and I didn't take a lot of time mixing. I just didn't, and I'm that way to this day. When you compose and you play the instruments, you do all this stuff, you don't want to hear the track anymore. I'm tired of it. And it's like, to try and break it down and mix it, damn, I don't want to deal with that. So I'll just be like, sounds good. Boom. Let the mastering guy deal with it, which doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, my film stuff, I don't mix. I don't mix that now. It's all tracked and sent to a mixer because I probably would never work again. But, in those days, there wasn't really time, or I didn't have the system with which to like track all this stuff and, have some guy mix it. So I just mixed it myself, and, it doesn't sound so great, but I think the intent is there.
Mm-hmm. And you wrote the lyrics to some of these tracks as well, right?
Yes.
And was
there's
it
only one
like
track I sang on, right?
Is it Metal Sonic only?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about that one? So, what were these
I can't
driving
remember
and writing lyrics thing?
I think I was on, like, looking back at that record, I was kind of young and inexperienced, and was more of like, gee, I'm going to impress everybody and show everybody that I can write in every possible style known to mankind. And I can't think of an album with any less focus than that album. And so I thought, well, there's not a metal song on here or hard. Why don't we do something? And I don't know, someone may have brought Metal Sonic up to me as maybe an idea. Hey, maybe do something for Metal Sonic. And I thought, oh, wow, I could do something metal, which I don't. That's a music genre I don't have represented here yet. So that's what I did. So I just kind of had a riff and did a thing with it, and did my best Kurt Cobain impression or whatever I was doing, and wrote some, I'm sure, probably not very good lyrics, or maybe they were better than, maybe I did put a little thought into those lyrics because I had to sing them.
Okay.
I can't remember what the lyrics were, but I you know what? I'd have to see them to know if they were terrible or not.
I'm sure that can be arranged with the internet. So yeah.
But it was my kind of imagination of what Metal Sonic should be, because a lot of the Sonic, I was a fan of the original Sonic music and a lot of that stuff, but the aesthetic that the Japanese had for their music was really different than who I am musically. And I also think it's one of the things that they appreciated about me. So it was different, and I wanted to bring a little bit of that into tracks like Metal Sonic, and even the tune for Sonic and Knuckles and Spinball. It has a little bit of an R&B thing, because I thought that was probably the most I could get away with them, because the other Sonic stuff was so perky,
Yeah.
And that just naturally wasn't my vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it, but I also think in a way that it was why I think in particular Yasuhara-san wanted to work with me, because I think he wanted to add a little bit of a different flavor into the Sonic world as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm digressing into other things, but Metal Sonic was my attempt to paint Metal Sonic as like a hard rocking kind of guy, because he's called Metal Sonic. It was very basic.
But going back to what you just said about Sonic music, it
Yeah,
actually, if we look back into all these years, all these decades of Sonic,
yeah,
there's not just a single style of music, not a single genre of music that could represent Sonic right now, because it's been so
right.
many different
It's
things.
all over the place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so and all of them good actually, or most of them good. So
all of them good. Um, but in my opinion, none as good as the original. And I'll tell you why. Because it really encapsulated that character for me. Having worked with that character and known about him for so many years. I know this sounds stupid and pretentious, but that to me, even to this day, and listen, I've sat in on one of the more modern Sonic games in the early 2000s. I
mhm.
did a couple of tracks for, and I heard a lot of the stuff, and I've heard others like attempts at hard rock with Sonic and stuff like that. But for me, it's all just, you know, uh, it's good, but it's not really the essence of Sonic. I still think the best stuff is the original stuff. I truly do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but
It's
that's that.
timeless, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for many reasons, the stuff that came later on and came after, for lack of a better word, I might get in trouble, but I'm just going to speak bluntly, is really a dime a dozen. It could have been written by a lot of guys, and a lot of the original Sonic stuff, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and a lot of Sonic 3, some of the Sonic and Knuckles stuff or whatever. That was unique. That was something brand new. Uh, for its time, and still to this day, there's nothing quite like it,
Mhm.
and that's what defines that character was defined with that music, at least musically, and everything else is just an afterthought to me. It's good, works, provides pacing, but when you get into all of that other stuff, including stuff that I've done later on and things like that, it's just not the same.
Mhm.
I think it's a lot of people, including myself on occasion, trying to make Sonic musically into something he's really not. Oh, let's make him really cool or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
there was a coolness about him with his original music vibe, you know, especially when you look back. It worked. It was great. Millions of people loved it. Why mess with it?
Mhm.
Is my, my more mature self looking back at
Yeah.
that.
Have you heard
Let's
about Sonic Mania?
I've heard that term. Is that a
So
game or like a
yeah,
term?
it's a game. A game.
Or a
I think it's
movement?
both because of
Right.
the fandom. I think that's what sparked the
Yeah.
idea behind the name. But Sonic Mania is a game that was created by a team of people that were originally just fans,
Right.
and they were hired by Sega to create a new 2D Sonic. So like
Oh.
in the style of the original Genesis
Yes.
ones.
Yes, and
Uh,
I'll say this just really quickly. That's another thing that just doesn't work for me. 3D Sonic doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. Sonic was created brilliantly by Nakasan, and that game relies on a 2D scrolling platform. You can turn it into 3D all day you want, but for me, that's a different game. And
Mhm.
it's not that same groundbreaking thing. And to me, it just doesn't even look as fun. It just doesn't.
Mhm.
And but listen, I know the world moves on, but that, I guess, I'm sorry, I just totally interrupted you. But you're talking about a 2D
Yeah, but
platform Sonic.
yeah, yeah,
Is it
yeah. So
sides?
so they
Yeah.
actually took some of the original levels from Sonic 1, 2, 3, Knuckles.
Hmm.
They reimagined them, remixed
Oh.
them in some ways, created a couple of new levels as well, and they did some new tracks as well, some new
Oh.
songs for them in the
Oh, I'd
style
like
of
to
the
hear. Yeah, I'd like to see
originals.
that.
Yeah. So it's actually, I think, a good example of using the feel of the original
Right.
music and the original games and updating them to modern times, right? So and not
Right.
losing that the feel of the originals, I think so. It
Right.
was pretty good and pretty successful as well, and sparked some remakes and Sega being more open to working and collaborating with other studios that were eager to use their IPs that were dormant for many years. And that's why we're getting a few comebacks in recent years with a lot of good results for Sega as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good
Mhm.
because, for Sega, Sonic was very much like for Disney, Mickey Mouse. That's like the Holy
for
Grail.
sure.
You don't mess with that character. But that's fantastic. I'd be interested in seeing some of that.
Yeah,
It'll bring back
I can send
memories
you.
for
I can
sure.
send you some links if you want to after
Okay.
so you
Sure.
can check them out.
Sure.
Hmm. Yeah, awesome. So I usually do something with my guests here on the Sega Lounge, which is a little game I like to call the Sega Lounge Challenge.
Okay.
Now that you know our guests, it's time to put them to the test. It's the moment we've waited for and the moment they dread.
Welcome to your doom.
I mean, welcome to the Sega Lounge Challenge.
Since you're a musical guy, I thought to myself, let's have a quick musical game, something I like to call the roulette of Howard Drossin music. Would you like to
The
play
roulette.
this roulette?
Sure.
This is what I have here are 10 sound clips, short sound clips, 10-second long sound clips.
Oh boy.
Of
my music or somebody
your
else?
music, your
Oh,
music.
boy.
The thing
Okay.
is, these are all things you've done for Sega, so
Okay.
it's relatively easy. And then
And I have to guess the title?
just have to tell me what game they're from.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
Don't have to go specific. Can you identify after all these years what the games are?
Okay.
Right? So they are all numbered 1 to 10. And since this is a roulette, would you like to pick a number at random?
Does it matter?
It
Can we
doesn't.
just go,
We can go 1 to 10 if you want to.
sure, let's do it.
Yeah. So let's play number 1.
Spinball. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah. Ooh.
Effective. Effective.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So Spinball, is that your final answer? Are you
That's-
sure?
Final answer.
Yeah. Okay, that's correct. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Ready for number 2?
I'm ready.
Let's see. Let's take a listen.
Oh, that's tough. I know the track. Die Hard Arcade?
Could be.
Dynamite
Could be.
Decca? Alien
Could be as
Front.
well.
Alien Front. Ugh.
So what's
I
your
know it's
final
one of those
answer?
I'm going to say Alien Front Online.
Alien Front Online. So final answer, Alien
Yes.
Front Online. Howard, your guess is correct. Well done.
wow.
It is. It's the
I was
title
sweating.
theme as well. Very good.
That was the
Good
title
job.
theme?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but wow, that was tough because I did. That was with Uchida-san's team.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Awesome. Let's go with number 3 then, shall we?
sure.
I think this is very easy as well. Let's take a listen.
Spinball. Sonic Spinball.
Was this the first track that you ever created for Sega at STI?
I did that on my first day at Sega,
Yeah. Okay.
and I completed the whole track on my first day. Came in and yeah, that was my first day at Sega,
Mhm.
and I think I finished it by mid-afternoon.
Awesome. And it's still iconic to this day.
It is?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the things that you least expect, you know? I never would have thought that at the time because I was just trying to make people happy. I was like, oh boy, I hope they like what I hope I know what I'm doing. Because I had never worked with the Genesis before. I lied and said I did, but I didn't. That's also a fact.
Interesting.
That's how you get in.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's correct, of course. This is Toxic Caves from Sonic Spinball.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go. Let's steer this into a different direction with number 4. Okay. Number 4.
Oh. The Sonic and the Black Knight?
Why?
What's that?
Why?
Why? This was the one that I did that had a bunch of composers on it. I remember June. Yeah, this is the one that I talked about. It was in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a few tracks and a couple of cutscenes, maybe. I think it was Sonic and the Black Knight. Final answer.
And that is correct. That is, this was Crystal Cave from Sonic and the Black Knight.
Crystal
well done.
Cave. Okay.
Very good.
Oh, man. Especially, pieces of music are kind of, to composers, they're like little children. They're like that's dumb. They're like your children as you're working on them. You care for them, you kind of rear them and form them and everything. And then I think it's definitely a lot easier for me to remember game tracks. I couldn't do this with film cues. You know what I mean? Because some of them are, but it's and I can also tell sometimes by the sound of it. Anyway, cut that all out. That's dumb. Yeah. Next.
Let's keep going with. No, but I get what you're saying.
You know what? In the age of social distancing, I'm mentally distancing again. That's what happens.
Let's go with number 5 then.
Number 5. Oh, that's Comic Zone. I can tell right away. I don't know what track it is, but I know it's Comic Zone. Final answer.
It is Comic Zone. Temple at the Gates, episode 2-2.
Temple at the Gates?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the track. Okay, number 6. Let's take a listen.
Oh, this is Dynamite Deca, which might have been later called Dynamite Cop.
So Dynamite Deca was called Die Hard Arcade here.
Oh, it was.
Then that's this one. Dynamite Cop is the sequel.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's Die Hard Arcade.
Which one? The first one? Die Hard Arcade?
That's Die Hard Arcade.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely positive.
And you're correct. Well done.
Yes.
Die Hard Arcade, Dynamite Deca. Very good. Good job. You're crushing this. Amazing.
I'm telling you, I don't forget the game stuff.
Because
we'll see.
You're not the first one to take these kinds of challenges, and not everyone thinks the same way that you do about the music they made.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, sometimes people forget, so there's a lot of other things on their minds, so yeah. Okay, but you're doing a great job so far. Tired of listening to the same music on the radio over and over again? Wouldn't it be great if you could have a station that played your favorite Sega music and remixes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Luckily, there's Radio Sega, an online radio station dedicated to the best in Sega and Atlas music. And you can request your favorites at any time. Plus, Radio Sega has live shows every single day of the week, including a first-hand preview of the Sega Lounge. You can find the full schedule of shows and listen to the station by going to radiosega.net. Radio Sega, playing the best Sega music 24/7. Let's take a listen to number 7. The real challenge starts now, or maybe not.
Number 7. This is Sonic and Knuckles. This is the Rasta guy's theme. What's his name? Knuckles. Yeah, duh. Yes.
I thought you were joking there.
No. Yes. Yeah, Knuckles. This is that's Knuckles' theme.
It is.
Yes. Yes. I tried to give him like a steel drum kind of island vibe. Because I saw him and he looked a little bit like the Predator, but a Sonic character.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, that's
very good job. Very good job. So that's number 7, which means there are 3 tracks left. Let's see what happens.
See if you can throw one by me.
Let's see.
As we
I
say
don't
here
think
in
so
America.
at this point. I don't think so. Let's take a listen to number 8.
That's the ooze. Oh my gosh, that brings back memories.
Yeah, underrated, I think.
That was the last game that I did for the Genesis. That was when I still lived up in San Francisco. I did that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that like right after Comic Zone. I had like no time to do it, so I had to do all these tracks really fast. But that was a really fun game. It was such a weird game.
Yeah.
I don't think it did very well. I don't think many people saw it. But I like some of the music I did for it. I remember liking it and hearing it. But it was kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek music. Because the game... And I remember that game too. I didn't have flatulence, but a burp sound. I remember that was very important to me. Making sure that there was a big belching kind of thing.
Yeah, so this part of the game was, this track was from Toxic Dump. So that was, Toxic Dump. So there had to be farting noises and burps.
Right.
And whatnot. So yeah, it fits.
Yeah, I remember, but that was another game. Like I just couldn't play that game. I was like, what? I was trying to control this blob of like, I had to just like look at it, I had to walk to someone else's office who played it and say, can you play this?
Yeah.
I knew how to do it because I just couldn't figure it out.
Awesome. Okay.
The ooze.
The ooze,
man.
Yeah.
Now,
underrated,
yeah,
though, I think.
Listen, they're making movies about every other game. Why not make a movie about the blob. But the ooze. But because it involved, the story was, there was like a laboratory and this evil doctor and, I mean, come on.
In this day and age with all the environmental concerns, why not make a movie about toxic waste, sentient toxic waste?
Right. Toxic, toxic waste, toxic viruses,
Oh, yeah.
The whole shebang.
For sure.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's go with number 9.
Number 9.
This is the best one.
Oh, that's Metal Sonic. Yes, we were talking about that. Yes. Oh, man.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, you're crushing this. Awesome. 9 for 9. Let's take a listen to the last one, which will probably be very easy as well.
Let's see. This is the Comic Zone Roadkill CD, the first track on it.
Yeah. That's it. Into the zone. Very good.
Listen.
Perfect. Wow.
I
Yeah.
don't remember all the tracks thinking about them. Like if I'm
Mhm.
thinking about, like if I think like, oh, can I remember all the tracks in this game? I don't. But if you play it for me, I'll remember it. Because I think that I always try to give each track kind of a signature melody or a thing about it. That's just the way I write music. I write music in a melody driven way. That's how I was brought up. And for a lot of film music, I've had to unlearn that a lot. Depending on what projects that you work on, people don't always like that. And melodies, obvious melodic music, which we had with films a long time ago, is not as prevalent in a lot of stuff. And so you kind of have to learn to be really minimal.
Mhm.
And especially a lot of the stuff you hear, which I love, now I've come full circle and like gotten really into a lot of this kind of stuff too. Music can almost be sound effecty. And that stuff, a lot of that stuff I wouldn't remember if you played it for me. I would be like, I don't know. But the game stuff, I think that, in particular from when I was really young, I was really into putting melodies and everything. And I think a lot of that stuff kind of just stuck with me just by its repetitive nature.
Yeah, because I imagine you would keep listening to the tracks over and over again, right? Even in
Oh yeah, while you're working
before
on it.
the
Sure.
the game was released with testers and whatnot, and
Right.
right.
And a lot of modern film music, to be quite honest, a lot of it you're not going to walk out of the theater or you're not going to be going away humming, with the exception of John Williams and a few other guys who
Yeah.
are left doing that kind of thing. A lot of it is really just for the purpose of supporting the underlying drama in the film, which really is what it should be. But a long time ago, there was more melodic movement and certainly more thematic. They still managed to do it, but styles change, and I think that I originally came from that kind of school, the Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams kind of school. Those are the guys I really looked up to as a kid, and I've had to learn to kind of go into this other area where, listen, I've done a lot of very forgettable music that my clients were very happy with. It works very well with the scene, and I did my job, and that's what's important. But would I want to listen to it? No. I would just be like, okay, this is boring. But apart from the film, but with the film, it's just different now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's a great segue into my last few questions.
Yeah.
Which are regarding what we've been doing now. So you're not as involved in gaming music as before, right? You've been working mostly for films. Yeah.
Yes, for films, and occasionally I'm involved in some other kinds of things, commercials. So not just films, commercials. I've worked on a lot of TV stuff lately too, and some live concert stuff.
Yeah.
As well, with some artists like Terrence Blanchard or the Wu-Tang Clan, people like that. So
awesome.
It's not that I wouldn't like to do games. It's just
that was my question. I don't
get asked
actually
to do them anymore. I mean, I'd love to do them.
Okay.
But I kind of, when I first, really left the game world, I made a conscious effort to just really focus everything on trying to get work in films and stay in that world. And, though I've done a few games, through that time on contract, for the most part, I think it kind of unfortunately took me out of the game world. And once you're out, it's very difficult to get back in, So, because I don't really know the players so much anymore. And, but if someone asked me to do a game, I'd love to.
Yeah, because nowadays the limitations are almost gone, right? Not
Yes.
entirely, but almost.
Yeah.
Many games scores are like film scores in many
Oh,
ways, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. One of the questions that actually one of my listeners sent me to ask you was, let's say Comic Zone gets adapted into film. They decided to make a movie about Comic Zone, which would be a very interesting idea, to be
Sure.
honest. Would you be interested in scoring that film?
Well, I'd love to. The reality of would I be asked to is a whole nother issue. Because Hollywood is not the game industry. Hollywood is a business that's based upon relationships. Whoever took the project up, the director may or may not already have a long-standing relationship with a composer that he or she is very comfortable with. And that's how the business works. And whether they're well suited to do a score like that, it doesn't really matter. It's just, who are the studio and the main players comfortable with using. And a lot of that is dictated by budget and, again, relationships that people have. So, but yeah, if something like that were to happen, if they made a film, I would love to do it. Of course, I would jump at the chance.
Okay.
But it would just depend on who did it.
How
hope
would
they
you
would
approach such a project? Because you said that when you worked on the game, the idea was to piggyback on the whole grunge scene at the time.
Yeah.
Which is not really a big thing nowadays.
Right.
How do you think you would approach a Comic Zone movie?
Well, I think that if they tried to, make the movie with the original vibe that the game had, I'm not sure the timing's right for that right now, unless you want to do something that's really different and try and, start a resurgence of the whole grunge thing. It might be a case where the vibe of what's popular now, maybe he is not a he is a she, and is more of like a Billie Eilish kind of vibe.
Okay.
Or something that's popular now. Not sure how that would work, but, you could essentially take that same idea and turn it into kind of what's popular today. Unless you just wanted to say, hey, screw it. We're going to do grunge for better, for worse. And maybe people will hear it and go, hey, this is really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Films, for example, based in the 80s are all the rage these days. So
Right.
I don't know, maybe one set in the 90s would work as well?
Well, sure. We were
know.
saying earlier in our conversation that everything comes back around again. Just different. So I think that doing something with that grunge thing, but reinvented, but in a fresher way, like today, including some of today's vibe would be very cool. But it's trying to pull that off in a film. Films are hard enough to pull off as it is, just making any film. Regardless of film where you have a character being sucked into a comic book world, that would be interesting and difficult. I've always hoped that they would make a sequel to the game, but it never happened. We talked about it a few times, but it never got off the ground. But again, I'm not really even sure how that worked, because everything, it seems like, through all those talks, there was a push to turn everything into 3D. And I'm not sure why, and Comic Zone, one of the things that made Comic Zone was the 2D-ness of it. You've got Comic Zone panels that you jump into. I'm not really sure how you turn that into 3D, and it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not a game designer guy like that. That's a question for people like that. But I'm not sure how you.
I think it works better as a 2D game. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that there was a video a long time ago, and maybe this would, if someone wanted to make a film, they would look here. there was a first. There was a band called, was it Aha? And they had a song called Take On Me.
Take On Me,
where he goes into a comic book with his girlfriend or something. I can't remember it, but I just remember that they're in real life on film, and then you see them go into this comic book world.
Yeah.
And, I'm not sure where you go with that, with a script and whatever, but that's not what I do. I'm sure someone could figure it out and figure out some way to make it interesting. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe somehow tie it into X-Men, because that's Marvel, anything Marvel. Yeah, that'll make a lot of money. Somehow have a new Sketch Turner joins the Marvel world or something.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. Yeah. Sketch Turner to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, he better have a special power other than just sketching. I think to join that universe, you need to be able to destroy buildings with some, lethal skill.
Well, he has a rat, so
he has a rat. Yeah, well, there is that. Maybe he's just like the lame younger brother of all the superheroes. They're like, oh yeah, him. They let him go along for the ride, and he does their portraits or something.
Yeah. $1 million idea right there.
I don't know about million.
Okay, so what advice, Howard, would you give to an aspiring video game music composer? Obviously, you're not as involved in the video game scene as before, but let's say someone is trying to take their first steps into VGM composing. What advice do you think would be useful for them?
Well, I think that the same advice that portends to video game music is the same advice I'd give pretty much for any kind of music. It really is who you know. That's what it comes down to. That's how you get your first jobs, because you don't have credit. So you need to get credit by getting a job. And unlike with films, where you say you can do music for a student film for free, and the film student may not be too picky who does the music, okay, so you can get your first gigs that way. Video games is a little harder, because video games take some budget to produce, even on the mobile level. So you need to try and develop relationships with these people. And the way that I did it was through a friend. I got a job at a video game company, and I tested games. Did I say that already?
Yeah. So you mentioned at Disney, right? Disney Software.
Yes. The best way, you might want to do that. If you're involved in, you're a musician that wants to do music for video games, consider getting a job. One of the jobs you can always get is a tester. They always need testers. All you really need is a heartbeat. You don't really need qualifications. You go in there, you play games all day. It sucks. It sounds good, but you do it and it's boring. You got to play the same damn game over and over, and you fill out bug reports. But what it does is you're inside the building. You're inside the offices. And you have an opportunity to get to know people. And some of these people, at least the way the office was set up when I did it, we were away from the people that actually developed the games, but we weren't that far away. So in my case, I smoked cigarettes back in those days. I'm not saying to smoke, but that was one of the things that, you're going out for a smoke break. Everybody, even executives who smoked went out for a smoke break. And you start talking to people, hey, man. And that's when you start developing relationships. People get to know that you're not a crazy person, and you're nice, and you're enterprising. And at a certain point, you feel comfortable enough handing them your demo. And maybe even saying, hey, listen, I'll demo something for you for your game. No strings attached. Listen, most people will give you a shot for free. No strings attached. You don't have to hire me. Just make it clear I'm not expecting anything, but it's a good even exercise for me to put pressure on myself to do a demo and give it to someone and they may or may not like it. They may or may not hire you because they may have someone. And don't take it personally, because they, again, much like with directors, they may have people that they're comfortable with, and it's often the case, and that's why it's so difficult to get in.
Mm-hmm.
But that is one of the ways to start, and the other way to start is through social media. You know, I'm not a big social media guy. If you look at my social media, it's really lame. It's really, my wife is huge into it. Her whole business, photography business, is all social media. She thinks I'm a total loser with this stuff. But I just don't, I haven't spent time, you know, I've started to a little bit more with the whole coronavirus thing, you know, being like, okay, maybe I'll post something or like people's stuff. So I'm starting to do that more. But my wife really is right. If you put yourself out there and put your music out there and get to know people, you just never know who you're going to meet. She has gotten so many opportunities to work all over the world just by starting a social media account. It's incredible. And putting herself out there and putting her work out there. And that is also one of the things that's just so amazing. Our ability to put ourselves out there without a record deal, without, you know, some company distributing your stuff. You can do it yourself. It's incredible. Even though I'm not taking advantage of it, like I said, I'm just being an idiot about it. For young people, it's a fabulous way to self-promote. I can't think of a better way. And it's really those two things. You know, one is something you can do yourself with a computer. The other is more of, you know, in a physical way, testing, which actually, you know what, in the age of coronavirus might be a little different. I don't know if testing is going to be farmed out to people just doing it in their homes now versus being in an office scenario.
Yeah, probably.
So maybe that is something to think about now.
Mm-hmm.
Then that wouldn't put you in the same
Try
stratosphere.
to have a way to get your foot in the door, right? So
That's because the old
do.
saying, it's who you know, that is 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many people, and I won't name them, who really, I won't say so many people, I know some people who just really aren't that good at what they do, but work, because they work it. They work who they know. And that really is their main job. They may not be the best musicians or composers, but they're fabulous at self-promoting. And man, they hit that shit all day. They spend more time doing that than music. And but I'm just telling you, that's a lot of it for a lot of people. Okay? I'm just telling you.
You got to know how to live, right? So
You got to know
how to live your life. So that's what works for you.
Exactly.
More
Knowing a
power
little
to you.
business and how to market with your skills, I wish that I knew better.
Mm-hmm.
But I am seeing now, you know, looking back at things and knowing what I know now, it would benefit young composers so much, or people who are striving. Learn something about this. It's not music. It's boring.
Mm-hmm.
And which is probably why I never took any time with it. But it's really critical in knowing how to present yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. Great advice for people listening in. Okay, so Howard, last question. This is the same last question for each of my guests.
Okay.
You probably remember this because you worked so closely with the Genesis. There was a marketing thing back in the 90s for the Sega Genesis in the US called blast processing, right? So Sega said that the Genesis had blast processing, which made it more powerful than the competition. Blast processing wasn't really a thing, though. It was just a marketing gimmick. But let's imagine, for the sake of this question, that it was a real thing. And it really makes things more powerful. So if you could add blast processing to anything in the world, what would it be and why?
To anything in the world?
Anything.
Oh, gosh. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is a vaccine for coronavirus.
Oh, for sure.
And the next thing is cancer, a cure for cancer. And how to feed starving children. I mean, I'm not thinking on a musical or game level. That's just what comes to my mind.
Yeah. There are no wrong answers. There are no right answers either. But there are definitely no wrong answers.
Where I'm at in the world right now is just about, helping other people.
Yeah. You've been doing some volunteer work, right? You mentioned that. Yeah. So
I volunteer at an AIDS center, and I've actually worked there a lot recently since coronavirus hit, because a lot of our volunteers were elderly, so they've had to stay home. So I've been going in there a lot, and we provide food and hygiene for people who are in trouble financially, for financially at-risk households, and also for the homeless. And it's, for me, it's, it's work that I do that really is significant for me more than anything, far more than anything I've ever done. Music is music, but at the end of the day, when you help people and you help make the world, help put a smile on somebody's face or someone's kid, that really means the world to me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And on that very, very inspiring note, it's time to say goodbye. So Howard, thank you so much for coming on the SEGA Lounge.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we can chat again sometime, because
absolutely.
I'm sure we could talk about many of these topics and others for a long time.
Definitely.
It's been great having you here, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's it for this 2-part special interview with the man, the legend, Howard Drossin. Definitely one of my favorite interviews, and I'd like to thank some of our listeners that sent in some questions for Howard as well. Namely, Jamie64326, Electric Boogaloo, OSC, and Eclipse. Thank you very much for your suggestions. And that's it for this week's episode. Next week, we'll be focusing on a community event coming up soon, the Race for Good 2020, which is returning for its 3rd year to raise money for charity. Be sure to come back next time for more info on that. And, of course, to not only listen to new episodes as soon as they're available, but to listen to previous shows, feel free to subscribe to the SEGA Lounge on your favorite podcast app. You can also check out our website, thesegalounge.com, featuring added show notes to the most recent episodes of the show. And let me know if you have any comments or suggestions, including guests you'd like me to interview in the future. You can send any feedback to kc@radiosega.net or tweet @thesegalounge. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great week. Have fun, be safe, and be sure to come back the next time we open the doors of the SEGA Lounge. Bye-bye. The SEGA Lounge, hosted by me, KC, and part of Radio Sega's network of live shows and podcasts. Theme song and incidental music by OSC. Find them at opussciencecollective.bandcamp.com. Got any suggestions? Drop me an email to kc@radiosega.net. Follow us on Twitter @thesegalounge. You can find previous episodes of the show by going to thesegalounge.com and wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.